everybody, it's Kathy and Colleen. We are here for our monthly podcast on this beautiful June 11th. And, as usual, we're going to start with Colleen so that she can let us know what's going on astrologically with that beautiful comforter behind her.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And nice to see everybody again. It feels like it's been longer than a month for some reason since the last time we did our podcast, but I know it
It
hasn't.
does. It does. I was thinking the same thing today.
I know. I guess it's just everything that's going on in the world. And I don't know if time seems to be speeding up or slowing down, but it seems like I'm in some sort of a time warp or whatnot, depending on what's happening around me. But, this time period astrologically is probably the busiest time period that we're going to have for the year 2020 because we're in the midst of eclipses. And we may have talked about that in the May 11th podcast that we did, but on June 5th, so of course this is past us already, June 5th, we had a full moon lunar eclipse. And so what exactly does that mean? I mean, full moons, as we know, the moon gets larger and fuller, the energies intensify, people's emotional responses get more triggered, all kinds of things happen during a full moon, right? I used to work at a domestic violence shelter. And so we'd always oh, it's the full moon. Okay, we'd have more activity, more phone calls, more, women coming into the shelter. Unfortunately, that was one of the things that happened during a full moon. But the eclipse intensifies that full moon energy. And I'm not going to explain the particulars of what, the eclipse and how that's set up scientifically speaking, but the eclipse energies, it activates that full moon energy or intensifies that full moon energy even more. And it lasts a lot longer too. So when we think about having a full moon and then 2 weeks later we have a new moon and then 2 weeks later we have another full moon, and so those full moon and new moon kind of time periods last for that couple of weeks until that next lunation occurs. But with the eclipse energies, because the energies are so intensified and it brings about huge changes and redirections and transitions and death and rebirth kinds of energies and realigns us to be more aligned with our truth, our soul truth, not necessarily our ego truth, because what happens during these eclipses is that it shifts us and changes the circumstances and situations around us to such an extent that we feel like sometimes that the rug is pulled out from underneath us and what in the world is happening, why is this happening? And of course, this is on both a personal level as well as a collective level. So the collective, I mean, we're definitely continuing to see more changes economically and unfortunately racially. Things that are going on have been activated by this full moon lunar eclipse, but also where those eclipses fall in your own personal astrological chart will also give you an idea of where those changing death and rebirth, redirection kind of energies are occurring for you personally in your life. Now, here we're coming up to June 20th, which is not too far away. And on June 20th, 21st, depending on what part of the world you live in, we'll have a new moon solar eclipse. And then I will say that 2 weeks after that, before our next podcast on August, wait, where am I? July 11th. Yep, I'm in that zone where I don't know what day it is. But on July 4th, we're going to have another full moon lunar eclipse. So we've had one full moon lunar eclipse and we have another one. We have a solar eclipse in between. So that's a lot of eclipse energies. That's bringing a lot of change and redirection. And again, the death and rebirth, the transformational energies that are occurring for us. Now, full moons are usually about healing and letting go. New moons are usually about planting new seeds, putting out our intentions for what we want to grow and bring in during that new moon cycle. Again, and I feel like I'm a little scattered, so forgive me, but as we move through this eclipse energy, those energies are going to be with us for the weeks to come. It's not just until the next full moon or new moon. This is going to be potentially until the next set of eclipses occurs. And so we have weeks and even months of some of this change energy that will be initiated during the June and July eclipses. but we'll see it unfolding, and we'll see what's happening as a result of the activation of those eclipses again, through the rest of this year, because the next set of eclipses actually isn't until we get to the end of 2020 and into 2021. So we have a long while. And if we think about it on a big picture level, a collective level, and Kathy and I don't get too much into politics and things of that nature, but I will say this is an election year, and that's about all I'm going to say. I don't necessarily get immersed in that kind of energy, but because these eclipses are happening, and because of what's already occurred with the coronavirus and some of the other situations that have unfolded since then, most likely being exacerbated by this full moon lunar eclipse we had on the 5th of June, I feel like, we're going to definitely see some changes and some different kinds of energy dynamics as we near that, election season in the fall of 2020 here in the US. Now, I do want to say a couple of other things, because although those eclipses are the most important thing, as I said, we're in a jam-packed time period here as far as some intensified astrological energies. We also have a Mercury retrograde coming up. If you haven't felt it already, I'm sure most of you have, because Mercury is in its shadow and has been in its shadow for a week and a half. But on June 17th is when Mercury officially goes retrograde. Mercury is the planet that rules our thoughts, our ideas, our communications. And, you probably hear a lot about astrologers and even lay people talking about, oh, it's Mercury retrograde again. And so we have misinformation, miscommunication, missed meetings, missed travel, funky things that are happening with our electronics and our phones and our computers. All of that is ruled by that Mercury energy, because it rules information of all types. Now, Mercury is going to be retrograde until July 12th. Kathy, our next podcast is coming out on July 11th. So it comes out right when Mercury is going to be turning back to direct motion. It's going from 14 degrees of Cancer all the way back to 5 degrees of Cancer. So if you were born under the sign of Cancer, you're really going to be affected. Hi, Kathy. You're really going to be affected by this Mercury retrograde. And also, too, probably those of you that are Capricorns, Libra, that's me, and and Aries, also will be affected greatly. June 22nd, we have Neptune, the planet that rules the spiritual realm, the planet that rules illusion, confusion, and delusion, is going to retrograde motion as well. Now, Neptune is so slow moving that we're already feeling the effects as it's slowing down to a stop. A couple things that can happen. We can feel a little bit more physically ungrounded and scattered. When Neptune slows down to turn to retrograde motion, we might even feel more physically tired. We might feel more confused. We might start forgetting things. Our mind isn't quite working the way we think it should be. So, don't fear and don't start thinking there's something wrong with your brain or your mind. It's probably Neptune and that confusion energies that's coming in. One of the other things Neptune does is it sensitizes us energetically. So we might become more sensitive to foods, chemicals, and other people's energies. So if you're already sensitive and empathic, Neptune is going to heighten and intensify that, along with all these eclipse energies that we have. We also have on June 24th, Venus is turning back to direct motion. Now, Venus rules our relationships and partnerships. She rules money and finances and personal resources. She's been retrograde since mid-May in the sign of Gemini, which is a mutable, changeable, I can't make up my mind kind of sign. So as she's been retrograde since mid-May, we might have been experiencing some relationship confusion or indecision, I guess is a great word, as well as things regarding finances and money, to where there's been a question about things, or again, this vacillation of what do I do next, or what decision do I make pertaining to this, that, or the other thing. We're going to start to see towards the end of June and into July, those things will start to sort themselves out. And then the last thing I want to bring up astrologically is something that I'm really excited about. I don't know how excited other people will be, but Mars, the planet about energy and action, Mars is considered the warrior planet. And he's going to be moving out of Pisces, which he's not real fond of because Mars is a fire, assertive, take charge, I want to make things happen, and I want to make things happen fast kind of planet. In the sign of Pisces, it's been kind of watered down. And again, our forward movement has been maybe slowed or stalled or confused in some way. But on June 27th, Mars will be moving into Aries, which is a fire sign, the first sign of the zodiac, and the sign that Mars rules. So he's really happy and at home here. And it's like, get up and go. We're going to go full steam ahead. We're going to take the bull by the horns or the horse by the reins, and we're going to just gallop forward and make things happen. The only thing that's going to happen with this Mars and Aries time period is that it's going to go retrograde too. It will go retrograde not in this month of June, but a little bit later, so a few weeks down the road. But the thing is that it will be in Aries until January of 2021. So from June of 2020 to January 2021, we're going to have Mars in Aries because of that retrograde motion. It's going to spend about 6 months there. And it's going to actually be retrograde September, October, and into November. So those are the 3 months that it will be retrograde. That's when, you know, things might slow down just a little bit, even though, again, Mars in Aries is full steam ahead. Things might slow a little bit during that fall time period so that we can, I don't know, readjust, you know, readjust our direction or readjust decisions or, you know, readjust certain things within a project we might be working on, or there might be more life events on the collective level, perhaps, that come in to kind of slow down our forward movement and momentum. But I'm really excited about that one. And then really quick too, numerologically speaking, the month of June, we may have mentioned this in the May podcast, but June relates numerologically to the Wheel of Fortune tarot card, which is about a karmic shift of the wheel and things that are maybe fated, kind of shifting and moving. And into July, we're entering into the Justice card. So July will be like the Justice card energy. And interestingly enough, in my very short little meditation that I did before, I got, you know, when I say the Wheel of Fortune is about fate, this is one of the cards I pulled from the Wisdom Oracle deck, which talks about the fates. So this has a very fated quality, as does, again, the lunar eclipses and the solar eclipse. Wonderful. Awakening. Yes. We're awakening things that may seem outside of our control. But this is, again, a time period with the eclipses that's realigning us to our divine truth, not our ego truth, but our soul truth. So the ego might say, no, I don't want that to go away. And the soul is saying, oh, but it's going to be so much better that it does, because something fated is occurring here, something, again, outside of our control. And with the Justice card for July, I also pulled from the Energy Oracle deck this called Contract, and she's holding the scales of justice. So it reminded me of the Justice card. Again, to me, the Justice card can signify things that are out of balance karmically, coming back into balance. And you can see those scales of justice are almost pretty well balanced. So I feel like even though we can't see because she's blindfolded here, we can't necessarily see with our physical eyes what's occurring or how it's unfolding or how the puzzle pieces might fit. This is telling us that things are coming back into balance for us, although it might be slow, because I also got a message in my meditation that said we still needed to have patience. So I think that patience is going to be key for the rest of 2020, at least. But know that those karmic scales of justice are being rebalanced for us. Oh, and then I look down, and this is one of the other cards that I got too, is Angel of Balance. So that idea of balance definitely is part of what we're dealing with. So that was a long-winded astrological update, Kathy.
Well, every right to be, for sure, for seeing what's going on. But it's interesting. So you've hit some of the key things that have been coming in, you know, because I not only meditate before we get on, but I also in the moment get a lot of things too. And the one thing that they kept saying when you first started was to grab my Wayne Dyer desktop calendar and look at the 11th, the June 11th date, which was not that hard to figure out. But it's interesting, even though it's at first going to sound, I'm going to read this to you all, but even though it's going to sound as though it might not go, it'll make sense to you when I get towards the end of it. So it says, stop blaming your spouse for your unhappiness, your parents for your lack of motivation, the economy for your social status. You are the sum total of the choices you've made in your life. And a lot of what I was getting, because Colleen and I were chit-chatting before we got on, and then we always say, oh, let's stop talking because then we're going to miss all the good bits and bobs. But again, we were talking about, with some of the cards to share was abundance in all forms, which this is the Angel Abundance deck in case anybody wants to know. But abundance in all forms, it's now a time for you to stop looking at everything that you are missing, like you had shared in different verbiage, but still the same. Stop looking at the things that you are missing and be appreciative for what you have in this moment. And knowing that everything that you have around you in this moment is what you need for right now. It's not that, if your car is starting to fail, I mean, there's the obvious things. If your car is starting failing, well, obviously you have to do something about that. It's the footwork that you continue to do. But I know a lot of us are like wishing to hurry up and get through this. And we will. We will when the timing is right, because it's all about divine timing. The other thing that I got, which I thought was kind of funny, is no more complaining. And it seems like the past few days, I've had quite a few people complaining, and I'm like, and myself included, because I'll say that I've caught myself doing it. And I just said, you know what? And when I catch myself, I stop and I say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful, because at the time I was complaining about being overwhelmed by what was going on business wise for me, because I felt a little like I didn't have enough arms to reach and do everything I needed to do. And I stopped myself and said, what are you doing? Like, just stop and think about, you've been sitting here for how long with nothing. And now you're so grateful that I'm blessed and grateful to do what I do every day, whether I feel like I'm being too quiet or whether I feel like I'm too overwhelmed. But again, it's this amazing focus that has come from catching yourself and keeping yourself on that positive place. Because the one thing that I have learned through this whole process is that if we go into the anxiety of it, or the fear or the frustration of it, it's not going to get us anywhere. It's going to end up making your body break down, possibly in dis-ease. And that's definitely to what we don't want to happen. We want to continue to walk forward. We want to continue with our head held high. There are things that we can somewhat control, and that is our thoughts, for sure. We can control those 100%. But the more that you stay positive and the more that you stay on that path and just embrace the beauty of where we are right now, because it is such an amazing visual transformation if you allow yourself to see it. And I'm not, of course, making light of things that have happened with the rioting and, government. There's quite a few opinions out there about government, which we're not going to get into. But again, everyone has an opinion and everybody's entitled to their opinion. And what's going on, I'm not saying whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's not my place.
Mm-hmm.
It's what my place is to hopefully hold the foundation of beautiful light and love and keep sending love out in all of these directions, so that we all can do that. That's the other thing that we can control. We can control how much love we put out there, mm-hmm. how much positivity we put out there. I'm not saying to be doormats. That's not at all what I'm saying, but we've got such a huge astronomical, interesting verbiage, astrological time period. And, again, my birthday is July 11th, so happy birthday to me. And you'll hear me say that, I'm sure, when we record the next one. I'll be singing happy birthday to myself. But again, I'm not going to go in thinking like, oh my God, it's going into retrograde on my birthday and it's in Cancer and it's doing this and it's doing that. I'm not going there, because how fun is it going to be that we're in retrograde on my birthday? Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm like, ooh, that'll be interesting.
Coming out of retrograde on your birthday. It'll be turning direct on your birthday.
Well, either way, right? Yeah. It's like, but oh, how fun.
Yeah.
How much more special is my day?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely going to intensify your intuitive abilities. Not that you need them to be intensified, but, Mercury in Cancer, and you have Mercury that rules the mind, and Cancer that rules our feelings and our intuition and our empathic ability. So I think with it kind of at a standstill on your birthday, it might just intensify that empathic ability that you have going on.
Oh, I would not be surprised by that. And at least that's already been intensified. I've already worked through some of that. Because again, you have to keep asking yourself, is this my energy? Is this my frustration, my anger, my fear? Is this really mine? Or am I picking up, the collective energy, either in my house, or I may have just gotten off the phone with a client? Again, it's like you constantly need to ask yourself those questions and keep yourself in check. And the one thing that I have found that helps me a lot is not just essential oils, because I'll say that, because there are days where I'm like, okay, if I put one more on, I might have an issue. But just getting outside, just even if it's for 2 minutes, 1 minute, half an
Oh,
hour,
amen to that. I
just
definitely, yeah,
there's something about just shifting that energy of where you are, getting in the car and going for a drive. That
yes,
alone has helped me a lot.
absolutely.
It's sort of changing our perception, and that's a lot of what I've done, is changing your perspective, changing your perception, discernment, using discernment about, well, you should be out there, you should. Well, I would say stop shoulding on yourself, so to speak. um but again, it's, you take one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. That's all you can do, one breath at a time.
As
That's
I find that as much as this time period, I mean, all the way back to when did this virus thing really start in the U.S.? Mid-March, beginning of March. I mean, as much as we've been challenged by many different things unfolding since then, I feel like it's also just as much, if we have allowed it to be, has pushed us into looking at, again, what are we grateful for? What are we thankful for? What have we taken for granted that maybe we're not ever going to do that again?
exactly, what can I live without?
Right?
Like, wow, I thought I'd really miss that, and I'm not really missing that at all.
Right. Right.
And
Because,
even the emotions that come up for you, like you might find that you're in this period of being, angry, or, which my children are so quickly to point out, just saying. But but again, you're kind of like, oh, am I? Oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. But clearly there's reasons for everything that we're going through, like everything that comes out of you, everything that you think, all the consensus of what's happening, everything is there to try to get us to learn more about ourselves, learn more about the government, learn more about how we're treating one another, and how we look at one another, and how
right.
we sit with one another.
Right.
Again,
It really has us examining our belief systems. And of course, I think everything, most things I think in astrological terms, and Jupiter rules our belief systems, and it's currently retrograde right now with Pluto, which is about going deep within our subconscious and kind of rooting out the shadow side of things. And that's really happening on a collective level, but also on a personal level as well. But we're really being asked by the universal forces here to really, what do I believe regarding this situation, that situation? What do I believe about myself, about what I can or cannot attain or materialize in my life, or what's important to me? Like Kathy said, what can I do without? I haven't missed that. And
right.
then other things, like even our sense of freedom, like getting out and going for a drive or getting out in nature. It's like, oh, we're appreciating that so much more because we've been quarantined and not really
Even
allowed.
the internet, I've appreciated it so much more because it's how I'm doing business at the moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? So again, but it's being utilized for things that are beneficial, I guess. I'm not quite sure that's the word I want. But again, you know what I mean? It's like it's just a total different concept. And just allowing yourself to go through it at your pace. I
Yeah.
wouldn't go to Colleen. So Colleen, what do I think about this? She's not gonna know what I think about this. She can try. Trust me.
I'm
She's
going to
not gonna
hypnotize
know what's in this little head right here.
you. Look at my, this is what you think. Yeah.
But I mean, but it makes so much sense, and it's really a time to embrace your family and be with your family, and enjoy the people that we are able to connect with and contact with. And of course, now we're starting to get back out. It's so funny. I got together the day before yesterday with my friends, and I at first we didn't know what to do, because we're so used to like walking up and just hugging each other, and we all kind of stood there like, and I'm like, it's so good to see all of you. Like I was the one that was like, I want to hug you so bad. Like, I'm one that's like, let's just say it. Like, let's just say it,
Right.
but we were still kind of like, well, and only because there's a couple that work out in public. So of course, they were just we were all trying to just be sincere about where we are. And then, again, you find yourself like, I don't care for that part.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't care for that
No,
part.
I don't either. Yeah.
However, it's okay because at least we were able to have our energies be near each other as opposed to just getting on Zoom together. I mean, that was lovely. And to be able to eat a meal together and be
Right.
outside clearly together because I'm a little more sunburnt, my little Irish skin here. Um, but again, it was such a blessing to do that. And again, you don't really, you miss it, but until you get in that moment, you're like, wow, I didn't realize how much I really, even just driving, because I drove an hour, even just driving, I was like, wow, look at all the trees. And I mean, I've seen trees around my neighborhood, but this is a path that I've taken for years and years and years, going back and forth to the places I work out of. And it's like, wow, oh, they redid that house. And oh, look at, oh, they planted some nice flowers. Oh, those are pretty. They redid their yard. They've got a deck now, what I'm saying? It's like, it was like such amazing. It was like I was in a whole new world.
Right.
And it was so fun because I was like, this is so fun in some odd way. But again, it's like the more you start to open yourself to embrace what's really there, and the people that I've gotten to connect with that live like Colleen, we have a 3-hour time difference between us. And the fact that we've been able to talk more, I wouldn't say it's because of quarantine necessary, but in a little bit, I think it has been. We've been connecting a lot, helping each other to get
Right.
through it.
Right.
It's such a blessing for that, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have had, the close connections that we've had. And there have been others that I've connected with also that live in totally different states. So I mean, there's like so many blessings to look at.
And when it comes to, the blessings and the belief systems shifting and whatnot, I keep thinking, there are, if I reflect on it over the last few weeks, there are a couple of things that have started to unfold for me. One of them is the thing that's coming up later this month that Kathy has organized. I don't know if you want to mention that or not, Kathy, but
Sure.
to me, that is a blessing because those things may not have happened if it weren't for what was happening. Maybe we wouldn't have gone there because, as we were being quarantined and restricted in certain ways, certain things were birthed out of that. And for you all listening to this and watching this, maybe it was something within a family dynamic. Maybe it was something as far as a career or work project that maybe never would have happened if it weren't for what was going on. And, with this virus thing and the quarantine and whatnot, it's really, and that's one thing, we can shift our belief systems, our perspective, as Kathy was talking about earlier. It's like, what good has come out of this? And maybe you'll find some of the things that have been good that have come out of this.
Absolutely. And if you feel as though you're still struggling, I mean, one of the things that keeps coming to me is to write. Of course, this isn't exactly what they mean, so I'll say that up front, but but write a gratitude journal every day. It doesn't have to be a log. It doesn't have to be, but write something every single day that you're grateful for. Something that you've noticed that brought you joy for today,
Mm-hmm.
because it will start to shift your thinking. And I will tell you, one of the things that they just brought this conversation back into my awareness, but it's this time to, if you're a worker bee, where you just work, 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 and you don't feel like you're you unless you're working, 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 working. It's time for you to rest and rejuvenate. It's time for you to kind of step back for a minute and say, okay, you like to work. That's awesome. We need them. We need you. Clearly, we need you. As a universe, we need worker bees, so to speak. Um, I work in a different way. I'm a worker bee. I will admit it. Just work in a little bit of a different way. But again, it's time for you to sort of rethink that. Is what you've been being a worker bee at, is it working for you? Is it really working for you? I've had this conversation quite a bit lately, not just only in my own household, but also outside of my house with many clients, that they're just not happy, to where either they've gone back to work to a job that they thought they loved. And once they got back in, they're like, I don't really like this anymore. I thought I loved this job. I couldn't wait to come back. And now I'm kind of like feeling like I never knew why I was here. So it's been very, very fascinating to me. I find it fascinating, and that's the best word for me to say, because I'm fascinated by a lot of the connections between a lot of the people that are coming to me right now for help. As there's
Hmm.
this amazing synchronicity between people, and that when we say we're all in this together, we really, really are all in this together.
Absolutely. And my eyes keep looking at, some of the cards that I pulled while I was meditating on,
Hmm.
the messages for the collective that, we could talk about here during our podcast today. And one thing my mind keeps going back to, astrologically speaking, is the Neptune turning to retrograde motion this month, because although Neptune can be illusion, delusion, and confusion,
Hmm.
again, it is the planet that rules the spiritual realm, and it's the planet that rules our dreams. Now, that can be nighttime dreams, but also daytime dreams. And it rules our imagination and our ability to visualize, and it rules our psychic and intuitive abilities. And my eyes kept going over here because of this card here that I pulled called Imagine. And they kept on chattering to me to bring up the fact that with this eclipse energy and with Neptune turning retrograde this month, and which intensifies Neptune's energies, it's a great time to visualize what it is that you want to draw to you. It's a great time to use your imagination. And just like Kathy said, are you, and I'm probably paraphrasing, but are you in a situation, a space, a job, a career, whatever it is that you're at peace with, that you enjoy, that you're passionate about? Because if you're not, this is such a powerful time to use that imagination and the ability to visualize because of the intensified energies. And the other card that kept catching my eyes that to me kind of goes along with this was the rabbit. Because if you
Ah,
think about rabbits are about fertility, and as an animal totem they're about taking huge leaps forward. Okay,
mhm.
because rabbits hop, right? They don't just waddle along. I mean, they really move fast. They move fast, and this is like Mars going into Aries for me. As soon as Mars goes into Aries at the end of June, we're going to see some really quick movements, energetically, all of a sudden. And that to me is this rabbit, which talks about proper use of cycles and rhythms. Well, proper use of the cycle that we're in right now with the eclipse energies and with Neptune, and that imagination piece is like utilize these powerful energies right now for bringing about completion, because the full moons are about completion, letting go, releasing, allowing, healing. And then that new moon cycle is about new beginnings, planting new seeds, moving forward perhaps in a new direction, because I feel like there's going to be some new directions coming up here over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So use the cycles and let that rabbit energy just really carry you far and fast forward, taking big leaps. Again, there's a potential here, was what I'm seeing, a potential that we can
Absolutely.
really
I
make.
started laughing because you said healing, and then this card fell out of the deck that I was shuffling, which is Archangel Raphael, which of course we know is the Archangel of healing. And he's definitely coming through to say it is a time. It's a time to transform yourself. It's a time to rejuvenate yourself. It's a time to, if nothing else, pay attention to your health.
Yeah,
What brings you joy? If you're in the state of joy, always a more positive place to be for you to create and to create abundance, whether it's abundance within your family, whether it's abundance, monetary abundance, or just feeling as though you have what you need, everything you need.
yeah.
Such joy.
And
Amazing.
we talked about
Amazing.
we talked about the death and rebirth energies and the transformation energies of the time,
Yep.
um, astrologically as well as energetically. And I will show you that this is another one of the animal totem cards that came out for me, was the vulture, which says life, death, and rebirth and new vision. But what came out of my energy deck was new beginnings. So you
Hmm.
can see there's a life, death, and rebirth towards new beginnings here that's happening in this June to July, until we get to our next podcast on July 11th time period. So this is real powerful energy. Sometimes I know some of you that know the tarot look at this and say, oh, but that's the Tower card. Don't get hung up on fears or anxieties about the Tower card. The Tower card means that the structures around us are perhaps going to change dramatically, and we might say come tumbling down, so to speak. But some of those institutions, government, political, monetary, whatever, they need to kind of come tumbling down a little bit,
Well,
so
we've
that
been through that.
right, so that we
What you
can.
think of the Tower card, we've been through that. I'm
Well,
not saying that there isn't some still
yeah,
happening, but again, it's many different degrees. Just because the pictures look so daunting. And
yes,
vultures are amazing. I have a lot of
I
turkey
love
vultures around
vultures.
my house.
Yeah,
They're huge.
they are
They're
huge.
they're absolutely huge. Like when I got to see one up close in person, I was like, "Holy guacamole, you're
I
huge."
know. I was taking a walk one day out. This is when I lived in Michigan, taking a walk out in the country, and as I was walking down the road, it was humongous, and it was right in the middle of the road. And I had never seen one that close up, and I was like, "What is that?" And it was a vulture, a turkey vulture, and I could not believe how huge it was up close. It was amazing to
It is
see.
amazing. That's the other thing too, is that, well, I want to say this first and then we'll go on with the animal conversation. But this felt, you know me, I'm always shuffling cards when we talk. It's a force of habit now. Sometimes I wish I had a deck of cards when I'm in my living room and I'm just on the phone with somebody because it's something to do with my hands. Some
Yeah.
people doodle while they talk. Mine's a card shuffling thing. But Celeste came out, and it's interesting because I'm going to read it to you because you can't see it, holding it this way. It says, a happy move to a new home or place of employment is in the works. This movement will usher in positive new energy. And you were talking about new beginnings, and you were talking about, the vulture and the tower, and it just automatically goes right into all of that. But I'm telling you, animals have done everything they can possibly do to communicate with us. Colleen and I have talked about this just this
Uh,
past week about how you can get so close to them, and I'm like, okay, you're just gonna stay there, okay, like, hey, because I'm always talking to everything. If you're ever my neighbor, you'll know, like, oh, that's the woman who talks to everything. I'm talking to the trees, I'm talking to the
oh
squirrels,
yeah,
I talk to everything.
yeah.
Because again, I'm so grateful that they're all here. I mean, they're all part of my universe. They're all part of my little inner sanctum, so to speak. So, I'm very grateful for all of them being there. I was talking to elementals today to help me. Our next door neighbor cut down trees between our houses, and I was having a really difficult time with that. And she's giving me a text of, because I can feel their energy. That's why I was having a hard time, because I figured I should explain that.
Yeah.
She's giving me the energy like, oh, I can't even really work because it's so fascinating to watch them. And I'm in my living room going, let me just put my earbuds in because I can't take what I'm hearing. Like, I have the total sort of reverse, the negative part. Like, if you think of a picture of the negative part of that, the
Mhm.
negative side of that, because I couldn't take the energy of feeling their pain in some ways. And
I agree.
it
Yeah.
was, it was very, and they've been there since I was a kid. That's the other part that's very difficult. But I know that they were ill, and I know that there was a reason that they took them down. And
Mhm.
so I kept asking the elementals every time I would go into my kitchen to get water or whatever. I would ask them, I said, please, please let them know that we honor them, and that, it's kind of like doing my own little releasing ceremony to them. But again, this is the thing that you do, is you accept who you are, and you work with what you're feeling. Feelings are feelings, can't help them.
Okay.
What you're feeling is honored for sure.
Right.
So again, you work with it, you get to know yourself. That's how you get to know yourself better, and how you can help yourself to get through everything that's going on, no matter what's going on. And when things get difficult and complicated in my life, I'm at the point now where I'm like, oh, here's another speed bump. We'll just get over that, and we'll just keep moving on. And sometimes I get excited about, oh, this is really hard, so I wonder what's coming after this.
When you were talking about feelings are feelings and we need to feel them, this fell out of the deck that I was shuffling, healing of the heart. So we're definitely going to be healing some emotional, old emotional energies, during.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to kind of bring up, because Colleen had sort of mentioned, now that we're sort of at the end of our podcast, is,
Yes.
we have a lot of things going on, Colleen and I, and we are always here to help, and always trying to let our guides guide us to ways that we can help everybody. one of the things that came to me was to do an online psychic fair. I have a lot of really good, amazing people, and I have some of them that are just starting on the path. Not that they haven't always been brilliant at what they do, but they're just starting to get out there. So Colleen is going to be one of the readers. I, of course, will be doing readings as well, but it's going to be through Zoom. So Voices of Enlightenment is my Facebook page. If you go in there, you'll see the event. And certainly through Empowered Voices, you can ask. We'll probably share it on Empowered Voices because both of us are doing it. I'm presuming, as long as that's okay with Colleen, because I didn't really ask ahead of time.
Absolutely.
But again, where it's both of us and we're both doing it, I would think it would be okay.
Right.
So you'll probably see it on there as well. If
And
you're
when
interested, you would contact me. I'm sorry.
when is the date for
June
people?
27th. Those of us that are in Eastern Standard Time are from 10 to 3. And Colleen is in Pacific Standard Time. I had to think for a second. Pacific Standard Time. So she will be 11 to
11 to 4
thank you.
Pacific time, but 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock Eastern time.
Eastern Time. Right. I was weird. I was getting the beginning Pacific and the Eastern Time ending, and I'm like, that's not right. That's too many hours for her. But again, if you're interested, you would contact me anyway. So if you want to reach out to me, certainly if you wanted to book with any one of us, and there's 6 of us that are doing readings that day, and there's some really cool readings that are going to be happening. We have a shamanic practitioner who's going to be doing cowrie readings. We have psychic mediums that are going to be doing that. I'm going to be offering energy work along with psychic medium. Colleen's going to be offering psychic medium work, astrological,
What I do.
psychic, yeah, what she does.
What I do.
Yeah, so again, she probably would be happy to do energy work with you too over the phone, because I think a lot of us need it. So again, I'm doing past life readings as well, because that seems to be coming up more and more lately, actually, when we've done what we do.
In 20-minute increments. So
20-minute increments for $25. Definitely worth y'all coming. So we're hoping that you enjoy it. We definitely hope and are so blessed and honored that you come and check out our podcast for sure. The online psychic fairs will be happening once a month. So if you miss the 27th, say you watch the podcast after the fact, never fear. There will be another. So yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where we go with this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Me too. It'll be great.
Yeah. And a way to get information out there for people at a pretty decent price.
Absolutely. So. It's a very good introductory price that you're offering for sure.
Absolutely. So hang in there till July 11th, till our next podcast, and we'll be celebrating. So maybe we'll have to wear party hats on our next podcast.
Thank you, everyone, for watching us and supporting us and sharing the video and giving us your comments and feedback. You can always connect with us, too. If you have a question or a comment, you can email us at empoweredvoices11@gmail.com. So anything else?
Or leave a message on our Facebook page, Empowered Voices.
Right.
For sure. You can just, leave us a message, private message through that for sure. But we are here. We are here. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out, because no one needs to go through anything alone. That's for sure.
Sending you lots of love and light. Many angel blessings, everyone.
Absolutely. Blessings, blessings. Take care. Bye-bye.